This is a story about my near-death experience. Technically I did die. I flatlined twice. But I digress. Posted a video on my channel not too long ago about, it was about 2 years ago, of where I'd been sick from drinking. And I'd become sober for 13 days, and I was on a high horse, and I thought that I could make a video about it because I thought I was done drinking, abusing alcohol. I was way off. The night that I'd made that video, it was probably 3-4 days after I started drinking, and this time I didn't stop. I'd stick with beer. But it was like high gravity. Oh, it was like 40 ounces of garbage, like still reserves, natural ice stuff. 8%. That even gnats would be like, oh nope, that's nope. Like they get away from that because it's horrible. But it did the trick. It got me drunk, and that's what I wanted. But it gradually got worse. It was a continuous degradation of health and mental health. I would wake up. At like 11 a.m. and I'd have the shakes really bad, so I would have to go and find a gas station that was selling alcohol at the time. I would go out of my way. I wouldn't even put on I would put on clothes, but I'd wake up and I wouldn't put on socks. I'd slide on shoes, and then I'd go and get a 6-pack of natural ice, which is like 5.9% or 6.9. I can't remember. I'm 180 days sober now, so that kind of slipped my mind probably for the best, definitely for the best. So yeah, I did this for about 2 years, and then I started picking up. Oh yeah, and it was so bad. Like, there were times when I would run. There was a gas station 4 miles from me, and I would lie to the people that I cared about, and people that were pretty close to me, my family especially. And I would run. I'd say I was going for a run because I still like to exercise when I wasn't drinking. I'd run 4 miles. I'd get my beer. I know it was like 4 Locos. I'd get 4 Locos, 2 or 3 of them, and then I'd run back, drinking them at the same time. But that was kind of counteractive because that adrenaline from the run would keep me from being drunk. So once I finished like the 2 or 3, I was wanting more. So I went ahead and decided to graduate to hard liquor. Cheap hard liquor. There's this vodka I was drinking like nightly. I was drinking 2 pints of vodka around the end of when things got really bad. I was drinking this stuff called Platinum 7X. It's like $3 or $4 for a pint, and it was just complete garbage. By this time, I didn't care because I just wanted to drink. And I would get a pound of vodka and 2 or 3 of those little airplane shots that are like 50% alcohol, and I'd drink it. I would drink the vodka, and I did stupid shit like drink and drive to go get more. I'd finish off half a pint, and I knew that it wasn't going to get me drunk enough to where I wanted to be, which was mostly blackout and belligerent, or just depressed. I would sit in my room and listen to music night after night. And so I would do that. And let's see, the worst part was I couldn't keep food down. I didn't want to eat. Because if I ate, I couldn't get drunk. It was a miserable experience. I would go 20 hours without food, and then I'd force myself to eat at night because I knew that, I knew I had to eat, but I'd end up throwing it up. And I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to work, hungover, my heart was pounding, I was dehydrated, severe diarrhea the next day, and it was awful. And then eventually it started getting to the point where I would wake up and I could go to work beforehand. I could go to work even if I was hungover and I wouldn't get sick. But then I'd have to pull over or I'd throw up in my car. Like if I had something to eat the morning before, it didn't digest. It'd just come right back up. So one day, I woke up and I was having a really, really sharp pain. Right in here, and it kind of traveled around. I thought it was a kidney stone. And I was still very energetic. I had plenty of energy. I could do my job. I definitely can now. The productivity level is 1,000 times better. So I thought it was a kidney stone, and I went home that night, and I drank some more to try to kill the pain. Well, it worked, and then 3 days later, it was about 3 days later, that pain came back, and it was bad. 1 to 10 on the scale is horrific. It was like an 11. It hurt right here, and it hurt all the way to the back. And it was at first it was a dull pain, and I got to work and I was suffering, but I tried to pull through it. And then when I say I got to go home from work, I'm really hurting or I'm really sick. So told everybody, I said, hey, I gotta go. I can't do this. So I drove home, which is about 12 miles away from where I work. Got home, tried to lay down, tried to sleep. Pain got worse and worse. I ended up throwing up, and it looked like tar. It was almost, it was brownish, and there was like specks of black in it. And I'm contributing that to dried blood, and also when I would drink, I would dip tobacco, and so that was probably a mix of tobacco and blood. Well, I decided to go to the hospital, and I hate going to the hospital, but I was in so much pain that blood vessels in my eyes were starting to bust. Well, I ended up taking half a Xanax to try to, I thought maybe I could level myself out. Half a Xanax doesn't do anything anyways. So I took it when I got to the hospital in the parking lot. And I told them, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what it was, but in my head, I knew that it was pancreatitis. I just didn't know how bad it was. So they gave me morphine because I was in some pain. The doctor didn't judge me one bit because that Xanax was not prescribed. And he didn't judge me. He could tell I was in pain. My blood pressure was like 190 over 130. So they do a CT scan. Well, they did an abdominal scan, and I had what they call necrotizing pancreatitis. That's when the pancreas starts to die. It's starting to actually die inside your body. At the time when they gave me the morphine, I was still in pain. The doctor comes back and he tells me, he says, we can't help you here. We're going to have to take you to Knoxville. And I was thinking, damn, that's a long drive. No, they had to fly me there. I guess I was so doped up that I didn't realize that helicopters existed at the time. I was flying high, but it wasn't on a helicopter. It was the morphine. Well, I get on the helicopter. They take me to UT. Everything's kind of a blur after this, but my stomach had swollen out to here. I've lost. Before I went to the hospital, I weighed 170 pounds, and that's way too much for my size. I'm 5'5". So I get to the hospital, and that part is a blur, but I just remember that my stomach had swollen up, and I could feel it expanding while I was in the helicopter. I could feel it expanding. What happened was I became septic, and then I developed what they call abdominal compartment syndrome, which if you get compartment syndrome in like a hand or your arm, I'm pretty sure amputation is the main source of treatment. So they didn't amputate my stomach, obviously, but they gave me a laparotomy, and that goes down like towards just above the pubic area. Very generous scar. This, I was on ECMO. Now, ECMO is for respiratory issues, mostly COVID. But what had happened was I aspirated 2 liters of fluid into my lungs. Because all the bile and stuff had settled. So they gave me ECMO. And then my kidneys had failed from the abdominal compartment syndrome. Well, they were on the verge of failing. My lungs, I had an oxygen percentage of 52%. I believe it was 52. And I had ischemic hepatitis, which is, you know, when you hear hepatitis, you automatically think drugs and all that. No drugs. Hepatitis is just inflammation of the liver. And ischemic means a lack of blood flow. Where my stomach had swollen up so much, the blood flow was not getting to the liver. And all this shit I knew about, you know, I'd always read about this stuff. I was fascinated with the medical field, but it didn't stop me from drinking. And then I went into a PEA. I believe it's pulseless electrical activity, and they had to do CPR. That happened twice. That last one, the last time, was a minute long, and I think they gave me a very slim chance. I believe it was 20% chance of living. It was a 20% chance. They were pretty much telling my mom to get her to get stuff sorted. They did not think I was going to pull through. Well, I did. This all happened back in May. I was out of work for 3 months, and I went back to work. And I'm better than I was before. You know, minus the diabetes, because that happened. But I'll tell you though, that was the scariest thing in my life. To die twice. It was awful. And then, let's see, while I was in the ICU, I believe, it was fentanyl. They gave me fentanyl. I don't know how people get hooked on that shit, because I was hallucinating like crazy. I had a dream that these balloons that people had delivered to me became alive. They were, it was like, there were 3 balloons. One was the head, one was the torso, and the other one was the legs. But it was riding a stationary bike, and, it was riding a stationary bike, and then it would, like, look over at me, and it freaked me out. Yeah, I mean, it's a balloon looking at you. Of course it freaked you out. But here's another one that was really terrifying. A couple of them. One of them, and these are very realistic, by the way. This is the one that's kind of humorous. I had a dream that I was hanging out with some friends, and Jake Paul came along. And somebody shot Jake Paul's hand and his dog. And it happened, and I was in a coma. I was in a coma at the time. So, that shit sticks with you. Yeah, I was in a coma, and then the third one that I had, it was like, these are the ones that really stand out to me, was, I was where I was laying in the ICU, I could look out and see the nurse's station, and the outside of the ICU, like the hallway and stuff, but there was a balcony. It looked like a balcony. It might not have even existed, I can't remember. But I had a dream that there was a dude with a rifle, and he was like pointing at the nurses, and then I hid under the blanket, because, I mean, this was in real time. Like, this had to be a hallucination, because I had a dream. It was either a dream or a hallucination, I don't know. Because when I was in the ICU, I was not in a coma, obviously. So I covered up, and then here's how the nurses got rid of the fucking shooter. One of the nurses grabbed a gallon jug of gasoline, poured it on the floor, and lit it, and tried to smoke him out. What? Oh, and I had a catheter. Yeah, that wasn't fun. I was on antibiotics. Oh, and also, forgot to mention, I had a portal vein thrombosis, which is a blood clot in your portal vein in the liver, which is a very, very dangerous place to have a blood clot. I mean, blood clots are not healthy, regardless of where they are, but yeah, portal vein thrombosis, which is another term that I read about, prior to this all happening, and it scared the shit out of me. Well, and then they moved me to a regular room, and then I finally got to see myself, what I look like after a month. Could tell I'd lost weight. Could tell I'd lost muscle mass. I was 120 pounds. I lost 50 pounds in 20 days. And my hair stopped growing. My nails stopped growing. I was on a diet, liquid diet, which thickened water is freaking horrible. And they gave me these like... Oh, and for some reason they kept giving me orange juice, which my blood sugar was like 356. And when I got out, it was 662. I was wondering why I was so damn thirsty all the time. But thankfully, they had home health. I had a PICC line that, there it is, right there's a scar. I had a PICC line. Oh, and I also had a chest tube, but, I don't know if you can see that. It's gone. It's kind of a little scar, but, and they had to do the chest tube, and then they did some other procedure that was really painful. That was worse than the chest tube. They, like, slit into your back, around your back, and they had to slide a tube in through your back to get into your lungs or your chest cavity, and it goes between your ribs, and there's a grid of nerves that goes along your ribs. That was awful, and it wasn't as bad as the pancreatitis, but it was pretty close. So yeah, necrotizing pancreatitis, abdominal compartment syndrome, kidney failure, a portal vein thrombosis, died. All that was from drinking. So yeah, I've put it down for 180 days, and I don't wish that upon anybody, because that was fucking terrifying. I had nurses and doctors coming to see me that had taken care of me when I just got there. They would come, they would grab me by the hand, and they would just say that I was a miracle. I mean, people were... I remember one nurse, she came in and she looked at me, and she's like, "You look familiar." Yeah, apparently she didn't remember it because one of the other nurses was there with her, and she pulled up a chart. I believe it was a chart, and she almost like showed... She might have had it on her watch or something. I might have been tripping still, but I do remember this happened. She pulled up the chart, one of the nurses did, showed the other girl that asked, or said that I looked familiar, and she was like, "You're the ECMO patient. You look great." This was like 2 weeks. It was probably a week after I had flatlined and all that other stuff. That was May 14th. So yeah, I'd say it was... Yeah, it might have been about 5 or 6 days after. And so they were saying that I looked great. And that I was a miracle. And... yeah, I mean, I guess I am. To be able to go back to work in July after everything that had happened. Rotting pancreas. That... Sepsis? Sepsis is no joke. I think my white blood cell count, for any of you watching, it was about 18. No, it might have been about 18. I think the highest it got to was about 26, 28. I don't want to tell you wrong. I have the documents, but I haven't looked at them. I kind of don't want to travel back into that and look at it again. It's kind of... I have PTSD from that for sure. But yeah, that's my story. I know it's kind of a ramble, but this is all in one cut. I'll try to post or edit this and see if I can put pictures of what I looked like when I was drinking, how swollen my face was, because my face was just... I looked like I had a moon for a face. It was just rough, but yeah, that's the story, and just be careful with what you do.